In the span of 2 to 3 years, our systems went from a company no one but hardcore FGC knew to a company that everyone who has played fighting games knows. They put their hands in everyone's pie, and I'm super happy to see them getting the recognition they deserve and the hype they deserve. It was such a good reveal teaser. And it was all for this moment, for the new Guilty Gear, for Skiegh to bring back his love child with all eyes watching. After the hype from the trailer, the FGC has been loaded with concerns for the game, and I echo a lot of them. Words from Skiegh about simplifying the game came out in, 2018? Now we've got the word reconstruction and some buzzwords we've heard before from other companies. It's not something people are happy to hear, that's for sure, so it makes sense to have worries. As a fan, whether or not this game does well, if it doesn't feel like Guilty Gear, then it's going to be a hollow victory or failure. If it does well, you know that it's going to be solidifying Guilty Gear going down a line of play you may not like. And if it does poorly, you'll be there saying, no, guys, you don't understand. This isn't what Guilty Gear plays like. It's scary. I personally think that they could make a new Guilty Gear as hard as Plus R, and so long as it had the aesthetics it does, a banging tutorial, and everything else I expect from Arc System Works, it would do better than any Guilty Gear prior, just due to the new branding recognition they have now. However, Arc System Works may not see it that way, and that's what we're here to discuss. What will the new Guilty Gear be like? What are they going to do to it? So let's get into it. First, whenever you make a sequel, you go back to the bare necessities. The simple, bare necessities, and then you build on top of it. This is actually why new Street Fighters get so much crap. Granted, I think they've yet to capture that SF feel in a while, but anyway. Because SF at its barest is just every fighting game ever, because they sort of made the foundation for all fighters. Guilty Gear, however, has a much more clear foundation, and they use it to make XR, and that's Guilty Gear Reload. Every mechanic that you think of as core for Guilty Gear is in Reload. Everything on top of it after the fact just defined the different games that came after. Now, I think XR was a fantastic sequel. Whether or not you liked it or not, it was a great game. It played like Guilty Gear, but had its own unique mechanics and meta, and it was great. They're not going to do that again. Instead, they are going to look at Reload a different way. How can we simplify this? How can we break this down without losing Guilty Gear? Essentially, this is like an alternate reality version of a Guilty Gear that could have been. Let's quickly bang out some stuff that they could simplify without losing much. Now, every mechanic lost or simplified is depth lost, and that sucks. But it's just how it is now. Stuff that comes to mind off the cuff, face up, face down knockdowns, and knockdowns as a whole will likely be universal across the cast. Up and down is silly anyway, but I'll miss the wake-up timings. They are nice for character balance, more than people give credit. Character weight, likely going to be reduced in some capacity. I would be fine with just 3. I think 4 is in XR'd. I think just light, medium, and Potemkin would be fine, but they might go even smaller than that. Teching out of combos will likely allow for button holding, which is fine, so long as they don't make you invincible until you hit the ground. That would suck. Anyone who plays GG knows it's a bad idea to mash tech, so I am okay with that. It's not a huge change. Bursts are probably pretty similar. It's possible they might try and merge dead angles and bursts together into some counter mechanic or get rid of one or the other, but I think they're mostly going to be the same. Baiting bursts and taking someone's soul is pretty core to the Guilty Gear feelings. So very, very important that they keep the soul taking. It's very, very important. Clashes are always in Arc System Works games, but they've never really made one with clashes as the emphasis. Not sure if Guilty Gear is the place for that, but a 2D fighter built around clashes sounds pretty fun, actually. Also, fuck Danger Time, which totally ruined that mechanic in XR. But yeah, they could give clashes leniency or priority and make the game built around that if they wanted to, but that's a whole new game design meta, so something the whole game would have to be built around. Not sure if GG is the place for that, but I wouldn't be against the experiment of it. Let's see. Air dashes are likely going to be given a button, I think akin to like Assault from Uniel, where pressing it does an instant air dash in the held direction and doing it while airborne simply does an air dash. Quality of life thing really makes certain combos and setups easier, but not a horrible thing. Let's see, risk gauge. I like the risk gauge. I generally don't like punishing people for blocking, but the risk gauge is a nice system. It doesn't stop you from blocking, it just punishes you for blocking for too long. And I actually really like that. And there's ways to avoid it increasing. So I'm a fan of the risk gauge a lot. So I'm fine with that coming back. I'd be very happy if it came back. Tension's unique building methods might be touched on again, but I like Tension Pulse. And it's very under the hood, so I don't think they're going to touch it, but they might. The same is true for Guts. They might touch Guts, but I'm not sure. The input buffer will sadly probably be much larger and more lenient, which is more detrimental than you'd think. I much prefer not getting accidental inputs and for wake-up DPs to actually require timing. Now, GG has always had a decent input buffer size, but they knew how to implement it, and in the areas which mattered most, which made everything feel very crisp. Anyways, that's a whole discussion. The input buffer, they got a whole video I could talk about on that. So let's move on. Roman cancels will likely be a pretty core mechanic. Whether or not they decide to do more with them, like an accent core or XR, is up to them. I think it's likely they will include another Roman variant, likely a new one. Additionally, due to the game likely having a lot more dynamic cameras, which I don't like, as it takes me out of the game, I expect any Roman cancel to have some sort of screen pause to it with possible slowdown like an XR in order to realign the camera properly. We saw in the teaser Souls DP sending the camera upward. Now that could be teaser flare, but it could be in the game as well. It would make Roman cancels really awkward if they don't alter the game camera in some smooth fashion, so I expect that. I prefer just no dynamic camera as a whole, but that's just me. I like to be back to my 2D roots. This is kind of a weird one, but I mean, we might be seeing more snapping in combos. You can see in the trailer, or the teaser, that after Soul hits with Bandit Bringer, Kai, who is pretty far above him, snaps into a perfect place, likely so he'll land in the same way every time. This is a very King of Fighters thing, but it's not a huge deal. So long as it doesn't hinder how freeform combos are in GG, it's fine. One of the best things about combos in GG is that they're very Street Fighter-esque, in that the normal you start with really determines what you can get. Like if I hit with Jam's Far Slash, I can't really do that much off of it. There's only a few ways I can extend it, and the best thing you can usually do is just 2D and do a card. Meanwhile, a counter 6H on like Potemkin is like all of your life, and games like BlazBlue and Uniel tended to default to most hits converting into your standard B&B, which is very undynamic, and while simpler, makes every normal just as threatening, which I think is less interesting. I kind of hope they keep their normals about the way they are. And not to mention the combo length is nice. Most combos in GG are pretty short, because how you hit with your attacks can vary so much due to different heights, distances, momentum, all of which can factor into what combo you can do. Which is why people say you don't really do B&Bs in Guilty Gear. You just learn how your character works and piece the combos together in response to the situation. I love that. I hope it comes back. I really, really do. I'd be ashamed to lose that. What's next? Oh, yeah. Now for Faultless and Just Guard. Probably the two most important mechanics so far. With Guilty Gear being so pressure-focused, you need strong defensive options, and these two are perfect for each other. Interesting defense breeds interesting offense, and vice versa. I've said that for a long time. Did your opponent Faultless to push you out? Change your Gatling to jump cancel buttons, so you can re-jump in and take advantage of the increased block stun. It's all very nuanced and dynamic, and makes the whole game feel important. You're never not doing something in Guilty Gear, and that's so fun and just good design. Sadly, I fear these mechanics will be getting some changes. I heard from people who are like one foot in on Guilty Gear that they think these mechanics are redundant. The only thing they have in common is they both involve blocking. They're literally exact opposites. But let's toy with the idea of combining these mechanics. You've got a quick example of shielding from Uniel, which is basically a Just Guard when done from neutral and a Faultless when done from block stun. However, that disallows you the ability to make holes and build meter from blocks done, which is huge, so not a perfect transition. I would have to think on this more, but they could take Faultless, take out Just Guard, and then just add in Perfect Faultless. So by default, Faultless would use no meter, but if you block an attack with it, it uses meter. And if you don't have enough meter, it can't block it, so if you're using it to like block an air attack, you'd still get hit. But if you time your attack right before Faultless hits, you gain meter and it operates just like a Just Guard. Or something. What happens to these two mechanics will be really important, but we'll have to see. If nothing else, I think every game Arc System Works has ever made has had Just Guards in it, so there's some hope there that Just Guards will be there. As far as other like Faultless related things, like breaking, I suspect breaking may just be a default thing in the game, or you can block throughout the entirety of a dash, and there is no break, which will make playing footsies harder. They could increase walk speed, I suppose, to compensate, but then tick throws are going to be a lot more potent. I don't know. I think a lot of the tricks you could do with Faultless will likely be something done by default. If nothing else, I know some sort of defensive mechanic needs to stop people from being able to freely block grounded attacks in the air. Or I hope that's the case. I hope it doesn't go the Dragon Ball FighterZ route where you can block everything in the air. That would suck. What's the next big thing? Oh yeah, it's in my notes. That's right. We might see a reduction in button count. God, I hate this. I hate this so much. It might go down to light, medium, heavy, dust. Less buttons is not less complicated. It just decreases the amount of options at your disposal. It's not a good thing. I hope they don't do that. It's going to be one of the first things I look at when we do get footage for the game. Beyond what we have, that's going to be one of the first things I ask. What is the button layout? Because it'll be a very telling sign for the rest of the game design decisions. And the next thing, the big outcry from everyone and myself that people don't want in the game, and that's auto combos. Now, I'm not going to go into huge detail on auto combos right now, but I personally don't have an issue with auto combos if they're optional or not integral to the game. Dragon Ball FighterZ system is what I don't want. It works fine for that game, but whiff canceling and locking normals behind strings is not something I think will work well for Guilty Gear. It would be awkward with the Gatling system and more complicated. That said, we are getting auto combos in some capacity. The teaser sort of goes 50-50 on this idea. Soul's initial combo could likely just be punched 3 times over. I prefer being able to do jabs over and over again, same with kicks. I think it's better for hit confirming, but whatever. If auto combos are nothing more than taking pre-existing normals and stringing them together for you, I don't mind that too much. I just don't want to have unique properties or effects or anything. Auto combos do not help new players who want to get better at fighting games. They're only good for casuals who don't even know there was a level beyond mashing. I'm only going to miss being able to kill someone. I'm going to be able to miss being able to chip kill someone with just a million punches. I mean, we all know there's chip combos. They're amazing. After that, I mean, what else we got? We got throws. Now, Guilty Gear's throws operate in a very old school sort of way, and some might think them dated, but I honestly think the way they are built in works too incredibly well to mess with too much. Throws are zero-frame startup, which means if you're next to someone and they throw, you're grabbed no matter what. This is good design in a game with dynamic defense due to Just Guard and Faultless, which allows you to make gaps in pressure, and throws are the best way to interrupt small strings. Instant air Just Guard and air throw are all super important for Guilty Gear feel. Not to mention, taking someone's soul by throwing their burst, I mean, that's like a necessity for Guilty Gear. Now, you could shift to a button input, but I feel like that's a bit committal in a game as fast as GG. I do think Throw OS might be removed, forcing you to go into 6H no matter what, which is essentially the throw whiff animation for Guilty Gear. But I wouldn't be shocked if they changed throws to a button command and possibly, and sadly, slowed them down, which I actually think would be a mistake mechanically, unless they change a whole bunch about the rest of the game. The tech window on throws might also be increased. Something like 3 to 4 frames I would be maybe okay with. But I'm actually fine with no throw breaks in Guilty Gear. I don't mind them. I like having answers to problems. So it's not the worst thing, but yeah. Supers, I mean those are no-brainers. They're going to be there. Instant kills. There is no way they would pass up instant kills. With how pretty the game is, they're going to sell trailers and they're going to sell copies of this game exclusively off of giving like clips of insta kills in the game. Absolutely. Kidding me? That's gotten in the game no matter what. Despite the fact it's such an unimportant mechanic for Guilty Gear. Now that we've I think that's it. Like, I mean, now that we've touched upon the systems in some sense, let's talk about what the next Guilty Gear might be trying to do. I'm not going to be like talking too much about like mechanical differences. I'm going to be let's theory craft. I said in my teaser breakdown that the new stage transition actually resets to neutral, which might make the corner less core to Guilty Gear with more chances for neutral. And neutral as a whole is actually what I think they might be trying to bring to Guilty Gear. Not to say that it's not there, but they might be trying to bring you back to neutral more often. This might be the least Oki-focused version of Guilty Gear. Why do I think that? You sort of have to look at the environment around the FGC right now. You have Street Fighter fans who are somewhat unsatisfied. You have Unil bridging the gap between anime and footsie fighter and doing surprisingly well. And now you have a very simple footsie fighter like Ground Blue getting hyped just because it feels like it rewards classic fundamentals more, despite the fact that no one in the West knows what Ground Blue is. But that didn't stop people from getting hyped. Like, everyone had no interest in that game, myself included, until we saw footage and was like, it actually looks alright. I have my concerns about that game, but I do like that it is simple in like a good way. They might even go to the extent of adding in wake-up options, which is going to make it feel a lot more like BlazBlue than Guilty Gear. But they might do that. If they do, I hope it's just one. I hope they don't add in a bunch. I think that would be a huge mistake. For Guilty Gear, that's a mistake. If you want to make a BlazBlue again, that's fine. But don't make Guilty Gear BlazBlue. Make it Guilty Gear. But it's an interesting change, since so much of Guilty Gear is forged upon solid defense. Like, it would be such an interesting change. However, if they reduce the defensive mechanics and make oppressive offense harder to get, then it'll be a different dynamic altogether. Like, if they remove or change Faultless and Just Guard, but then reset to neutral more, it'll be less impactful to those mechanics are gone or changed. I don't know. It's interesting. Now, I like the back and forth snowball or be snowballed game of GG. The casual audience, though, they don't want to have to learn how to block. In fact, if you hate blocking, you'll hate anime fighters as a whole, because it's one of the most important skills. Good defense is the deciding factor in most Guilty Gear matches. I'll be sad to see that change, but interested to see how they go about doing it if they do it. Going along with that, I also feel like they might try and... I don't know how to quantify this, but they might try and capture that anime fight essence in the game somehow. I don't know what that means, but it's sort of something I expect to see. Some cinematic flair, hopefully not in the form of a in-your-face comeback mechanic, but I do think they might try and put you back in combat as many times as possible, perhaps even like mid-combo. One of the best things about Guilty Gear is that you're always doing something and always making decisions. It's one of the key things I like about it, as well as there usually being an answer to every problem in the game. Now, I could ramble forever about this stuff, as well as theorycraft things, but I think I've done enough for now. If you're wondering what my hopes are for the next Guilty Gear, it's simply that it avoids the same pitfalls that other companies which have made similar claims fell into. Make the game a bit more approachable, but keep Guilty Gear's strong power balance, especially with its characters and tools, even offensive and defensive mechanic distribution, and just its freeform nature as a whole. Keep allowing answers to problems, and just hold on to that old school nature while dabbling into the new. I think XR did that very well already, but I don't want a new XR, or Plus R, or Reload. I want a new Guilty Gear. I want a new experience. I have faith in Arc System Works to bring us a fresh new take on Guilty Gear without losing what made it special. I've been burned for my faith before, but not from Arc System Works. And while Arc System Works' decisions on other games they've done recently have worried me and not been my cup of tea, they weren't Guilty Gear. They weren't even their own IPs. This is Guilty Gear. Daisuke's passion will always fuel this game, and I fully expect it to be great. If it's not, well, there is always the old stuff, and it'll be up to us to bring those back to the stages if need be. I have faith.
Alright, good DP from Deb. Good chase, and that's gonna be big damage.
No burst to get rid of this.
Yeah, might catch it at the end, very end here. One more
Have to use
opportunity.
it for the pressure. Oh no!
Oh, doesn't get the jump base on the tech though, or the throw on the tech.
Yeah, I gotta save it for the next round here. Deb is on tournament point.
And he's made a really strong comeback here. Now finally get warmed up against Marlin Pie. Oh, 5K to anti-air. Looking real good right now. Oh, gets caught by the end of the gun flame.
Man, what goes around comes around. Look at Deb space him out once again.
Right. And that factor worked out super well because it put him so close to Marlin Pie's note, it only did one hit. So he was able to stay in the whole time.
Gotta worry about all that meter though. We were talking about ACL YRC controls the front in front of Eno so well.
Oh, good defense, but does the cancel.
Had to spend a lot of meter for it just to get out of the corner.
Wow! Deb's defense is so good. All right, one more burst. That should be it for the rest of this remaining match.
Yeah, Marlon Puck gets out of the
6P.
corner. Counter hit.
Yo, and he has 75 meter, potentially 100%. Can he do enough damage with the super? Can he cancel it? No! He falls a bit short!
That's it. He needs one more pixel.
Just
Marlon
one
Puck
pixel.
getting it open for Tissimo. It's gonna be close. He's gonna be close.
He's gonna be close. No, he misses it on the